Hello, everybody. Today Thursday? Happy Thursday. I'm gonna bring up things. I have two screens going. We're gonna try it. See how it goes. How are we? Hi Shane. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited for today. Who's excited about today? All right, I'm trying to bring up the group so that I don't have to squint, because even with these, I feel like I'm still kind of squinting. So I am super excited to dive into this topic that I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations about, with people. This, delight and discomfort. So let me see if I can do this without, oh, look, I can look down at my screen and not have to look to the side. All right, I can do it. I can do it. So hi, Lisa, welcome. So fun. Very good. Hi, Hillary. I think I see you too. Hi. All right, friends, what I would love as we start to gather is for you to pop into the chat. Tell us how you feel about discomfort. How do you really feel about discomfort? What's there for you when you think about that word discomfort? Right? I have some hunches, but I would love to know, how do you feel about discomfort? What's that really like for you? Right? So today, not a fan. I'm guessing you're not alone. I'm guessing you are not alone. Anyone else not a fan? Right. I know. So, Hillary, because I can, I'm going to ask you, why are you not a fan? What is it about discomfort? I hate it. It makes me anxious and nervous, Shane says. Lisa says, yikes, afraid. Okay. Well, hi, Holly. When I think about discomfort, I think about avoiding discomfort. I'm so excited. Okay. So, yes to all of this, right? And what if there's another way? All right. So, we're actually going to start with a little experiment. You can stay sitting, you can stand. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. It's uncomfortable. I know. All right. So, here's what I'm going to invite you to do. So, thank you for checking in about your feelings around discomfort. So, we're going to set those aside for just a second. Okay. And I'm going to invite you, wherever you are, if you want to stand, you can stand, to reach your arms up overhead and interlace your hands, okay? Palms up. Notice maybe some sensations are there, right? Just be there for a second. Maybe close your eyes. There's all sorts of noise happening in my house right now. Talk about discomfort. But right now, in your body, notice the sensations. You're still there. Arms up overhead, fingers interlaced, palms reaching. Notice the sensations and notice what your mind wants you to do. Stay there. Breathe. Always breathe. Stay there. Allow the sensations to be there. Maybe on an inhale, reach up a little bit higher. Stay there. Breathe. Oh, yes, we're still here. Are you smiling yet? Take another inhale. Fill all the way up. And let it go. Release the hands all the way down. Exhale it out. Okay. What I'd love to know in the comments is, how did that feel? What did you notice? Sensations in your body? Thoughts? Okay. What did you feel? What did you notice in your body, in that stretch, and staying there? Okay. As you're putting that into the comments, I want to share with you, right? Why are we here today? I would love to help you redefine your relationship with discomfort and delight and consider how they actually go together. My goal is that you walk away feeling less defined by the ups and the downs, maybe less like you have to avoid discomfort, so that you can feel more rooted, more alive, more curious, and inhabit your truest self. Because when you inhabit your truest self, you will feel more peace and more joy. And notice all the things that are possible. Your mind was wandering, Hillary, and trying not to notice that your hands were slipping apart and your upper arms were feeling a little pulled on. Yeah, okay, right? So it just becomes an observation. How are we feeling? What can we notice? So noticing that your mind is wandering. So Hillary, what helped you stay there? Right? As you notice that your hands are slipping apart, what helped you stay there? Or did you stay there? Maybe you didn't stay there. Maybe you were like, no, I'm out. That answer would be okay too. The reason, right, that we are talking about this is that, like many of you, I have spent a lot of my life in what I'm going to consider an all or nothing approach, right? You've heard me talk about, if you're new here, hi, I'm Elena. Oh, okay, Hillary, you said you did stay there, but you thought about being out. Okay, but you stayed. Hooray. So friends, if you're new here, because there are a lot of new friends in our group, welcome. This is what it's like to hang out with me. I just dive in, right? If you're not new here, also welcome. I adore you. Thank you for being here. The reason I'm introducing myself is because I have spent so much time and energy and effort in this idea of all or nothing, right? Like peaks and valleys, all in for my goals, all in for my habits, feeling really fabulous when I was on target. Anyone? And then feeling really bad when I was off track, right? And the even more of my life, I'll go with it, trying to ignore or push through, or once I became a coach, coaching myself through the yucks. Right? I shouldn't feel this way. I should know better. I should be able to get myself out of this. Feeling this way is bad. Something must be wrong with me. Questioning all the things. And what I would offer you is that when that happens, and now they're mowing the lawn, when this happens, when I get to that place, right, of ignoring or wanting to bulldoze through, a few other things happen. I start to get swept up. It is, I'm more apt to get kind of swept up and jostled by the turbulence, the storms, all the things that make up life, because real life, right? But at some point that changed when, I'm not even sure I realized it, I kind of decided there was another way, that perhaps I could own my truths, how I'm feeling, and let it be a part of the experience rather than judge it, right? Allow my thriving, the ups and the downs, to be part of the big picture, and that everything I needed, all of it, all started inside me. And I say that because none of the bigs or the littles, the highs or the lows, defined me when I made this choice. Okay. So let me also share with you that I've always kind of been that silver lining person, right? I can I can turn something into a lesson, turn something into a silver lining like a pro. And in doing that, I ignored much of what was right there. The sensations, the intensities, the discomfort, the fear, also some of the goods. And so putting it together, I recognized that perhaps there were some key ingredients. I mean, I'm going to love it when my lawn is mowed, to inhabiting my truest self. A lot of us think that if we sit with the feel, so I want you to check in with this. If this is true for you, give me a heart or a thumbs up. That if you sit with the feels, the discomfort, you'll get stuck there. Anybody? Is that you? I'm going to wait just because I really want you to think about this. Are you somebody who believes that if you sit with the feels, and if you've been hanging out with me and working with me and are a Thrive Unleasher, not now, think back to before. How's that? Because I know that you don't do this anymore or as much. All right. Shane says yes. Right? We're afraid that we will get stuck there. But here's what happens. When we ignore, bulldoze our way through, put our head under the covers, numb out, we're just kind of band-aiding ourselves, distracting ourselves from how we're feeling. And I would offer that that doesn't create long-term change. It might make you feel better in the moment, but that thing that was actually happening hasn't gone away, and you haven't stopped feeling what you were feeling about it. And so this journey is about really learning what your truest self needs and what it doesn't. And that's what it took for me to figure out this is important, this isn't, so that I could live my best life, which looks different on any given day, right? Some days it's rainbows and unicorns, some days it's muck, right? And that's all okay. But that's what it took for me. And so I'm going to offer you this kind of bold message that if you want to redefine your relationship with discomfort, then you must inhabit your truest self. And if you're thinking, Elena, what does that mean? Or I know exactly what that means. I'm going to invite you to press pause on that because we'll talk about what all that is in a second. But first, let's think about why we avoid discomfort. Okay? Why do you avoid discomfort? Put it in the comments. Why do you avoid discomfort? Right? My sense is one of the reasons we avoid discomfort is that it's uncomfortable. It's scary. It's uncertain. We don't like feeling bad. And honestly, it takes effort because it feels yucky, right? We're also fixers and doers. So we think that we should, when we feel yucky, we should make it better, right? Maybe, maybe not. And let me give you an example. Years ago, Samantha's turning 17, so let's say 11 years ago, right? I was married to her dad, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't myself. I worried all the time, and so I did what I thought I should do. This is your second message today about being a fixer. Okay. So I tried fixing all the things. I tried fixing me, making myself into someone that I wasn't, doing things, kind of people-pleasing things that I really had zero interest in doing. Going to therapy, not a bad thing, good thing, but because something was wrong with me, right? I had everything that I had ever wanted. I was a classroom teacher. I had the baby I didn't think that I could have, all of the things, and yet I was miserable. And I kept telling myself, things will get better. Or even if they don't get better, my desires aren't that important. I'll be fine. I'll just live with this. So I took the discomfort and I was like, oh, it's not so bad. But I never really kind of sat in it until the day that I did. And on that day, I decided, yeah, no more, right? Because it was important to me to, even if it was going to be even more uncomfortable to do what I eventually did, to leave. Even if I had all of these stories in my brain about what that meant, that I had to be with it. I had to sit in that muck and not pretend it was going to change all by itself. So I talk a lot about being versus doing, right? That's not to say that we don't fix, we don't do, but we have to be able to stay there long enough in whatever it is, the delight or the discomfort, to notice what's really, really happening, right? So I want to keep thinking about this. Lisa says, don't walk certain trails. I know I will have snakes, avoiding heights, like, because you don't, yeah, right? Okay, so there is this opportunity to think about, all right, discomfort. We know why we avoid it. So what's the solution, right? It's making me really uncomfortable that there's so much noise outside. And so I'm going to honor the fact that it's making me really uncomfortable and that there's nothing I can do about it. And here's why. I'm going to share this example. Let's see if this tracks. Right? Ignoring that there's sound outside bothering me, that's not going to help it go any faster or go away. But when I honor it, then I can laugh about it, and it releases the expectations that it should be different. It releases the outcome. Oh, if it were quiet, it would be easier for everybody to focus. It releases all the stories I'm telling myself of, oh my gosh, they must be really annoyed because you might not even be able to hear the noise, right? So I'm sharing that with you because pretending that that wasn't bothering me, that would be a lie. It wouldn't be in integrity with who I am, with me, right? So here's the thing about discomfort. Pretending it doesn't exist isn't real life. So when you were in that shape like this, you can't hear the lawnmower. Oh, I'm so glad. All right, I'll stop talking about the lawnmower now. When you were like this in your body was beginning to talk to you, right? The longer you stayed there, new sensations were appearing or thoughts in your brain. So yes, right? When we stay with something, you're going to get more information. That information might feel intense, right? When I teach in yoga, which is my very favorite practice, we are invited to stay in a shape for longer periods of time. The reason is that our body then starts to talk to us. It's one thing when you hold a shape for 20, 30 seconds. It's another thing when you hold it for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Your body starts to talk to you. And what I often like to say is those sensations are the benevolent messages of your body. It's your body trying to get you to pay attention. It's not asking to be fixed. It's not asking you to judge it. It's not asking you to distract yourself. It's saying, hey, feel me. Notice me. And I would offer you that that is this first idea of redefining your relationship with discomfort. Because here's the good and bad news, right? We label discomfort as bad, delight as good. We can't stay up here all the time. This isn't sustainable. And so if we allow for the fact that it's true that we can't stay here all the time, we kind of have to make peace with what's down here and maybe not judge it so bad. Now, let me also backtrack for a second. There are a lot of different types of discomfort. I'm not talking about capital T trauma or maybe even little t trauma, right? There is discomfort that is seriously triggering, and I'm not saying that this applies to that. But in a lot of the things that we go through day-to-day life, the frustrations, the feeling a little off, the being uncomfortable in a situation, feeling challenged, afraid, even frankly, afraid of heights. Or let's use Lisa's example of not walking on certain trails because they'll have snakes, right? There's a fear. I'm not saying go out and look for all the snakes, Lisa, right? But think about what happens when you ignore or avoid situations because you don't want to feel that way. I would offer that that's not fully being alive. And especially if you like to walk on trails, it's not allowing yourself to be curious about something that you know helps you be rooted and connect to your truest self. Yeah? Is that making sense? So let's talk about then. It's limiting and you miss out. Absolutely. Right? And then there's probably a storyline of, oh, but what will happen? So so we've talked about why we avoid discomfort. Let's also think about what that discomfort is about. And sometimes the delight is about this too, right? We have a moment, it feels intense. It bothers us sometimes so much because of stuff that's happened in the past and our worries about the future. Right? Shane says, I miss out on a lot because of the discomfort that may take place. Okay, so this is the point, right? We are afraid of what might happen. So when we are afraid or uncomfortable about what might happen, we're thinking about the future or about the past. We're not present in the moment. And the first step to redefining your relationship with discomfort is being well rooted in the present. Meaning, right here, right now, how am I feeling? So, true story, a few days ago, some of you know this, I had an opportunity to accompany my husband on a trip for a surprise birthday party up in New Jersey. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go because it made me uncomfortable, because there's stuff that has happened in my relationship with some of his family that hasn't been fabulous. And apparently I've held on to those frustrations, right? So even as we were driving up, and even as I had set some boundaries around time, how long we were going to be there, I was still working myself up into a tizzy. But guess what? All the tizziness, all the discomfort had nothing to do with the present moment. It was all about the past, and it was about what might happen, how my sister-in-law might be whatever, right? All the things. And literally, let's say about a half hour before we arrived, I made a decision, pretending that I wasn't feeling this way. That's dishonest. Wasn't going to do that. So I shared it. And then I said, and I'm going to release it, because in this moment, or at least I said it in my brain, I don't know if I said it out loud. I decided that I can't control any of it. The only thing I can control is me, right? And so I made a decision to just be curious and allow. I remember driving thinking, I'm just going to allow myself to belong. The end. And that starts and ends with me. What other people do, not my problem. And I share this with you because it ended up actually being delightful. I don't know. We created ripples of delight, and it was lovely. And none of the stuff that my brain said might happen, happened. So much of our discomfort is wrapped up in stories that may or may not be true. So the first practice that I would offer you when you are noticing discomfort is to ask yourself this question. And this is one of my go-to questions for a lot of things, but it applies here too. What do I know for sure in this moment? What do I know for sure in this moment? Right? And that question applies to sensations in your body. It applies to frustrations with people, with the weather, right? All the things. What do I know for sure in this moment? When you ask that, it brings you back to the present. Okay? So that's step number one, to noticing the discomfort and kind of naming it. So the other thing that you will know in this moment is how you feel. Right? Now, let me give a caveat about this. What do you know for sure in this moment isn't things like, they are going to do this. Maybe, maybe not. The minute you start thinking through concepts, that's not present, right? Shane says, I create a lot of stories before an event that you're nervous about. It's exhausting, right? So instead, what do I know for sure in this moment? Naming how you feel. I'm nervous, right? Allow yourself to be honest with how you're feeling. So the what do I know for sure in this moment isn't just listing the facts, right? But it's also honoring and naming how you feel right now. Because part of the thing around discomfort is honoring it. To redefine that relationship, to inhabit your truest self, is to be well rooted. And that well rootedness is an honesty of, yeah, the present moment, but also kind of being at home and welcoming of who you are and what you are in any given moment. Does that make sense? Giving yourself permission to belong as you are. So this first idea is, what do I know for sure in this moment? Honoring and naming the feeling, honoring and naming the sensations, whatever they are, right? Getting really present in your physical space with your emotions, but also in your body. In your body. Our brain likes to lie. It's not always truthful. It means well, right? But our body often knows things long before our brain does, or always knows things long before our brain does. So this first opportunity is to notice, what do you know for sure in this moment, right? The second thing is to consider what would be there if you weren't judging the stuff. So what I would love is for you to think about for a moment lately, today, in the last week, that has felt like discomfort. So invite yourself for just, you can brainstorm. You might have more than one moment, but write it down. Consider a moment that has felt like discomfort. Does everyone have one? If you'd like, put it in the chat, put it in the comments. I'd love to know. What is that moment that has felt like discomfort? And then consider with that moment this first question of right now, even if the moment has passed, what do you know for sure? You can try it retroactively. So find a moment that has felt like discomfort. Consider what you know now for sure in this moment. And then what is it that you're judging? Right? So often in discomfort is rooted in a judgment that something is good or bad. Right? That something is good or bad. So what is it that you're judging about that moment or situation? What were you judging? And once you know what it is you are judging, consider, what would happen if instead of judging, you could be curious? Meaning, right? So let me go back to this shape that I had you do to start with, right? If my shoulders feel tense, right? And I'm judging my shoulders. So if I notice tension or pulling, right, I could judge it as, oh, it must mean I'm not very flexible or I'm not very strong. Or if I'm being curious instead, I could say, oh, right, this is how my body responds when, or what would happen if I take a breath? What's here for me to notice, right? As opposed to the judgment. So being curious opens it up. It removes the shackles, if you want to think of judgment as like handcuffs, right? Oh, butterfly, just okay, focus. So there's this idea that when we are well rooted, present, we can then notice the judgment and consider, could we be curious instead? Right? And curiosity doesn't mean like Curious George, man with a yellow hat, but it's an allowing, an opportunity to say, I wonder what's here for me. If I wasn't so busy saying this was good or bad, what could be here for me? Okay. So these are two ways to work with discomfort. This question of what do I know for sure in this moment, getting well rooted and being present, and then being curious, right, instead of judging. Questions or thoughts about that before I pivot us ever so slightly? How does that feel? Does that feel like something that you could try? Some of you have played with this. How does it work for you? Right, for some of you, this is not new. And yet, it always feels new. And I will tell you that even though I do what I do and I feel like I'm pretty well rooted, I still get swept up and notice where I am not allowing myself to be uncomfortable. So a few weeks ago, Mother's Day, I was feeling some stuff. And what happened was I gave myself permission to express how I was feeling. And I gave myself permission to cry. And what I recognized was as I was sitting there was a part of my brain that kept going, nope, like you shouldn't feel this way. You should know better. I started trying to coach myself out of it. And all of that was a very head-focused activity, meaning I was thinking about my thinking. I was thinking about the discomfort, right? So the change happened when I got curious. And I remember I was sitting on my basement floor thinking, like I wonder what it is that's here for me. Because it felt like something was here for me. What could that be? And how might I allow that to bubble up? And so my response to that was, well, it kind of feels like I need to let this get more intense before it gets better. And the way to do that was going to be to get into my body. I needed to feel this in my body, in my voice, but also in my body. And so I then resorted to physical activity that was going to help me feel this. I wasn't trying to make the feeling go away, but I was giving it permission to exist, and I was giving myself permission to allow it to move through me. Okay? What's interesting is, and this is where we start to move towards delight, that I would offer that discomfort and delight are kind of two sides of the same coin, right? And that neither one are long-term definitions of who you are, of what you are. They are also not meant to be long-term experiences, meaning that they're going to ebb and flow. Right? They are meant, you can't sustain delight And I don't think that we sustain discomfort either when we give ourselves permission to be with it. That they are extremes of a continuum, of the full range of this experience of being in life. Just like we need darkness to have light, right? Just like you need hot to notice cold. I mean, all of these opposites, maybe they're not quite so disconnected. Yeah? So the invitation here is to also redefine your relationship with delight. So part of redefining how we respond to discomfort, I would offer, is in how we react to delight. Because let's see if anybody recognizes themselves in this. And this isn't a, right? But just notice, is this true for you? Something starts to feel good. We start to feel like we're on track. What does your brain start to say? Ooh, I wonder if I can keep this up. I wonder how long I can make this last. Ooh, no, it's too good to be true. I can't feel this good, right? We start to undo that delight because of, again, past, future. Yeah? Does anybody ever do that? Question the feel-good moments. Yes? Give me a heart or a this, thumbs up, if you question or diminish your delight moments. Yeah? All the time, Shane says, right? All the time. So part of this redefining and allowing delight and discomfort and back again, Hillary says, yes, is not judging ourselves, not having to make everything mean something, right? The moments of delight, enjoy them, savor them, steep in them, but not in a graspy, grippy, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can make this last kind of way, right? This is again, well-rooted, being present, being curious, what's here for me? Because then, and here's why, because if we start to shortchange that moment, if we start to second guess it, diminish it, we move ourselves along back on that continuum in advance of maybe where we should have, right? We're not giving ourselves permission to be with what's there. And we're also defining delight, the good stuff, as only being achievable when you feel X, Y, and Z, right? There is a place in between. There is something that happens when you give yourself the opportunity to be well-rooted, curious, and here's the third one, alive, right? Alive meaning, of course, I'm going to feel ups and downs. I'm human. So alive is also, so of course I'm going to feel the ups and downs, but it's also allowing yourself to be activated, to be touched by. So rather than only looking for the big things to qualify as delight, giving the little moments permission to register as well. And the more that we do that, we start to move more in the flow with this continuum, with this experience. So then the delights don't have to feel so, the discomforts don't have to feel quite so low, and the delights don't have to feel quite so unsustainable, right? But we start to go like this, and it's not about where we are at the end of the day, but where we are in any given moment. So I've made it how many minutes without a Peloton reference? This is It's pretty good. A lot of minutes without a Peloton reference, but here we go, right? Interval training, whether it's on the Peloton or in something else, your body cannot sustain big periods of effort for longer than a certain amount of time. So one of the types of classes that I take when I ride my Peloton bike are power zone classes. These power zone classes are based on your personal threshold. You take this assessment, this functional threshold, this test, and it gives you ranges, 7 ranges. The first range, zone 1, is easy pace, all day pace, hours and hours and hours and hours, right? Zone 2, you can still talk, you're sweating, you're putting a little bit of effort. You can also sustain that for hours. Zone 3, a little bit more effort, start to get a little bit breathy. Maybe you don't want to talk so much. Sustainable, but not for hours and hours and hours. Zone 4, yeah, I could probably hold that for about an hour. Don't really want to talk. Zone 5, about 15 minutes, right? Zone 6, yeah, maybe 5. Zone 7, all out effort, okay? There aren't workouts that are all zone 4, 5, and 6, all class long, because your body can't maintain that amount of intensity. You need the zone 1s, the zone 2s, the zone 3s to be interspersed, to be built up. You need all of it. And none of it is better or worse than the other. And so this is this invitation, right? Because when you can see where you are and be intentional about it, okay, here I am in this zone, right? I'm allowing myself to feel the way I need to feel. I'm allowing myself to be breathless. I heard something yesterday about can you give yourself enough self-love to be breathless? I don't know if that's exactly what it was said, but it was kind of similar to that. That knowing that sometimes being breathless in delight or discomfort is actually an act of self-love, because you're giving yourself permission to be so in the moment that you feel it, that you are breathless. Yeah? How does that land? What thoughts do you have? What questions do you have? Right? So this last aspect of being alive is a permission slip to allow yourself to know that these different expressions, your heart racing, your heart soft, calm, your breath intense, your breath calm, the smiles, the tears, they are all measures of aliveness. They're all part of the gig, right? So my question to you is that example that I had you notice of a moment that has felt like discomfort recently. You considered, what did you know for sure? Maybe you considered something that you were judging, and what would happen if you could be curious. This last question then becomes, okay, and what if I allowed myself to step into that? Oh, friends, we have new gardeners mowing our lawn. I just happened to look out. Oh, we have wildflowers growing right outside our fence. I think he's like trimming them. No, okay. I'm real life in my home. There you go. So What is showing up for you as you think about this? And then I'm going to share with you something that I pulled earlier today that I forgot to grab, and I'm going to share it because I asked a question and I got an answer, and oh no, right? Yeah, oh no is right. I think it's okay. I think they were just trimming the tall grasses right outside our fence. And, if not, maybe it's okay. Maybe those potential wildflowers that were still germinating, haven't grown yet, needed to be trimmed. We're just going to go with it. I'm not going to, but right, like total discomfort. And I'm right, like real life. And what if that's what needed to happen? You guys are getting so many examples. All right, so here's what I wanted to share with you. Many of you know I love me my oracle cards. And this morning I asked the question. Thank you, Shane. Thank you. Yes, I am. But right, like there's nothing I can do about it. So here's the other thing. There's nothing I can do about it, right? So let's use this example. It's done. So I can sit here and spin stories about what it means, about this and that. None of that's helpful. So I can acknowledge this, right? And really what that is actually not about the fact that he's cutting the wildflowers. What it's really about is, or they're not wildflowers yet. Also, so what do I know to be true? They're not wildflowers yet. They're just germinating plants. Okay, so what do I know to be true? They're not wildflowers. What do I also know to be true? He's doing what he's supposed to be doing in terms of trimming, right? And also, it's not so much that he's cutting them, it's that I'm so excited to watch these grow. That's what it's really about. So if I'm being curious, it's the noticing of how much I really want these wildflowers to grow. Okay. And the stepping back and saying, okay, so maybe there gets to be a conversation about, oh, by the way, don't do that. So by way of example, there you go. All right. I love my oracle cards. And I ask a question every day, 80% of the time, let's say that. What do I need to know today? And what's interesting is today's card, I don't know if it was for me or if it was for our session together today. So this is from Kim Kranz's Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Guidebook. And I asked the question, what do I need to know today to inhabit my truest potential? And the card that I got was a buffalo. Okay, and let me read to you what buffalo says. The hooves of the mighty buffalo are grounded in the earth, yet its heart and mind rise toward heaven. The buffalo sees challenge, hardship, or a bump in the road, I can't make this up, as an opportunity for upliftment. Therefore, the buffalo does not fear death, illness, or misfortune. Its gentle eyes look to the road ahead, trusting every turn. May we all experience this elusive yet life-changing bliss from time to time, and may we allow this card to remind us that life is a precious gift. Right? The minute that I read that, I'm like, oh, that's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, discomfort, delight, all of it, we get to live it. And pretending that the discomfort isn't there, or expecting that we should be delighted all the time, those aren't true experiences. And so, what would be different if you gave yourself that card is for you? Oh, Holly, I'm so glad. Would you like me? I will take a picture later and post it here in the comments, Holly. That way you can see it. How's that? You can have it. That makes me happy that it resonates. So this is the invitation to consider. And here's why I think this is so important. When you inhabit, absolutely, you're so welcome. You're so, so welcome. When you inhabit your truest self, being well-rooted, being curious, being alive, and begin to shift, redefine, and let me be super clear, you're not gonna this isn't a switch that you're gonna flip, right? Discomfort, no more. I mean, that would be lovely, not so much. You start to begin to activate, to be unapologetic, to know what it is that matters to you and not have to feel bad for asking for it. You start to begin to name your desires. So the more we can be at home along that spectrum between discomfort and delight, we connect to that truest version of ourselves. And that's the stuff that we want to inhabit. It's not about inhabiting discomfort or inhabiting delight. It's about inhabiting your truest self. And that's what leads to more peace and more joy and feeling more connected in our lives, which is what so many of us want, right? At the end of the day. So what I would love to know is, what thoughts do you have? What questions do you have? What sticks out to you about this? Other than loving that card. I mean, right? I loved that card. I was like, oh, I have to share that. What sticks out to you about all this? And as you're thinking about that and putting it in the comments, right? One takeaway, a question, whatever it is, I will invite you to consider. Several of you are already coming, and I'm so excited. 2 weeks from tomorrow, the Sunrise in Your Pocket Live virtual retreat kicks off. These are going to be, I say 2 days. It's not really 2 days. It's Friday evening and throughout Saturday. And if you want to join us for the VIP experience on Sunday, it's Sunday morning. But it's a day and a half of time to nurture and nourish your truest self. This is where we notice the walls that are showing up in our lives and we turn them into doors. This is where we're going to get really honest about all that you have felt 2021, still holding over from 2020, naming it, and then giving it permission to move through you so that you can start to inhabit you at an even deeper level. There's going to be so much fun. We start with a Friday night groove party, which if you've never grooved, I experienced it for the first time in early 2020. It's like dance meets yoga meets, imagine you're skipping around the room or around the playground. It is the most delightful. Bye, Shane. Thank you so much. We start with that. On Saturday morning, we have yin yoga. On Saturday afternoon, we'll have a creativity session with Kara Boston where you'll be painting. I actually just got some of the materials yesterday that will be going out. You'll be getting a box of stuff that you need. There are so many good things in this box. So if you are curious about the Sunrise in Your Pocket Live virtual retreat, this is your chance. Registration closes next Friday, the 11th, because I want to make sure I can send you all the things. So check that out. I will put a link in the comments below. And stay tuned. Probably tomorrow I will put the details up for another workshop next Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what day I wrote down, where we are going to think about kind of this mid-year check-in of yourself to really think about what do you need to thrive, to inhabit your truest self. What are some of those practices? What are some of your requirements for thriving that would help you reset and bring forward the sense of being rooted, curious, and alive in your life. I am so grateful, so delighted that you all spent this time with me today. I'm happy to answer questions, to play through any takeaways or noticings. What else sticks out to you? Some of you have been playing with these things for a while, so I would love to know. I'm not going to call anybody out, but what is it, since you've heard similar things before? You're so welcome, Holly. Thank you. That feels like a reminder that you needed, right? If this wasn't new to you, what feels like a reminder that you're like, oh, yeah, there it is again? Because real life, that's what happens to me. None of this is a one and done. So good news, bad news, right? Discomfort, always going to be there, always going to show up differently. Delight, something that we always get to play with because we can always choose to be delighted, to find wonder in things. And we always get to practice making room and allowing both. Sometimes it's harder actually to receive delight than it is to be comfortable with discomfort, because a lot of us are really good at not giving ourselves permission to receive the stuff we want to receive, and that's a whole other conversation. But it's the same, right? It's being curious, being rooted in the present. So yes, yes, yes to that. Thoughts or questions? Thank you so, so, so very much, friends, for being here, for sharing your comments, your questions, your noticings. If things continue to percolate for you and you are like, oh my gosh, this made me think of, come back, put it in the comments, let me know, reach out to me with questions or thoughts. I'm happy to chat through any of these things with you. This is a really important place to play, giving yourself permission to notice. And the last thing that I'll just add is a lot of us think that once we started doing some of this work, it should get easier. And I will tell you that unfortunately, that just isn't true. That it does get easier to catch yourself. It gets easier to integrate these practices as habits. But oftentimes, the things that we need to learn, we are invited to keep learning them over and over again. And they change. And that's okay, right? That isn't bad. I was reminded of this recently by my own coach, where I was just noticing a lot of discomfort with something. And she was like, of course you're feeling this way, right? Because as I've grown, I'm making room to notice other things, and I'm playing in a slightly different sandbox. You know how in preschool you start in like the room for 3-year-olds and then the room for 4-year-olds? It's a little bit like that. Like you're moving up in degrees or levels or places to get to play. Your sandbox gets bigger or changes. So that's what I will close with, is that the good news is that you always have opportunities to play with this. And in whatever way I can support you or high five you or send you whatever compassion or ease that I can, please know that I'd be delighted to do that. Otherwise, have a fabulous rest of your day. Enjoy the end of your week. I look forward to chatting soon. Bye.